Well, a warm welcome to you all this week, and we're given for our gospel reading this week a parable about judgment, a parable that speaks into the situation of all of our lives. A parable with one marvellous line in it at the end, which applies to us at this time. Let anyone with ears listen. We've reached that stage of the lockdown, haven't we, where things are beginning to lift, where things are beginning to change. And we're stuck in a very difficult situation between two extremes in many ways, between those who want to go back to normal now and are behaving as if everything is fine, and those poor souls who are terrified and frightened to leave their houses. Very difficult positions to be in. Both of them very challenging. We have to be particularly attentive at the moment. We have to listen well. We have to begin to take measured risks. And all of life is, in essence, a measured risk. As things begin to return to normal, whatever normal is, I had the blessing and the grace this week of a haircut. The first haircut I've had in over 4 months. And I was very grateful to receive that grace because whilst I might have had long hair when I was a student, the vast amount of wax and hairspray I had to put on it at this time to get it under control was beginning to get a little bit wearing. So we see life, don't we, returning to normal. And the parable that we're given today is a parable about being realistic. A parable about learning to live in the world, in a world where there is free will and there is choice. Jesus never ever says to us, there is no choice. Jesus is always very good in the parables, and the gospel writers set this out, in giving people choice. The choice between good and the choice between evil. The choice between being wise, and the choice between being foolish. And we're given that choice in the reading today, where we hear about the parable of the weeds and tares, that which grows up. Now we know in life, don't we, that we would love to live in a world where there is universal love, universal peace, and universal goodness. But we all know that isn't true. We all know that we see degrees of wickedness and evil in the world. We also know, alongside that, we see a lot of goodness. We are called as Christians to be on the side of good. But we know that we fall away from goodness and God's grace from time to time, and that's why we need to be restored continually by the gift of absolution and the gift of the Holy Spirit. We know we are not as good as God calls us to be. When Jesus gives that parable today, he's calling people to mindfulness. He's calling them to be aware of their behaviour, knowing that actually by doing wickedness, they're not going to make themselves look much different on occasions to those who are doing good, because he points that out about the crops. They grow up together. When we look at things sometimes in difficult situations, it's very hard sometimes to distinguish evil and good. They are different by degrees, but we are called to be aware. Now, each of us has the moral compass of our conscience. And of course, as they often say, conscience is king. It is that which actually makes us human, having a conscience. So we need to realise the importance of acting well. And that's what Jesus comes to model for us in the Gospels, the importance of acting well, of being self-sacrificial, of thinking of others, of observing good moral behaviour, because it is a choice that we make. We are the part of the crop that is the good wheat. We are there in order to edify and to encourage. The story is told in this way to wake the audience up, to shake them out of their complacency, to make them aware. During this pandemic, we've had the same sort of thing done to us with the public health information things, when we're given things in series of 3 to wake us up and to make us aware of the dangers. That is so we keep ourselves safe. But equally as important is so we keep other people safe as well. Now we'll be planning, all being well and God willing, on August the 2nd to return to public worship. But it won't look the same for a long time. And if you are in a high shielding category, and if you feel unwell, and if you do not feel secure in coming back to church, that is absolutely fine. Because we are called to exercise wise judgment. That's very important in a time of crisis and a pandemic. People can be foolish. We see examples of that going on in the news when they gather in large crowds and they don't socially distance, and they don't wear masks when they can't socially distance. We are called to be responsible as the children of God and to model good behaviour. So let's be ever mindful this week of this parable of the wheat and the tares. Let's be the good wheat, that which grows, that which is harvested, and that which gives life to the world. May God bless you this week and all.